You're welcome. Senator Cantwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bloomfield, we're obviously hearing a lot at home about the issue of rural areas and the failure to connect or long delays. And obviously people here have already talked about least cost routing as a potential cause of that problem. And I know that you've encouraged the FCC to take action on this. They're holding some sort of a hearing or something.
Workshop
next week. To the best of your knowledge, do you think that in-air carrier compensation reforms in the ABC plan would address this issue?
The FCC's perspective is that because the access rates are high, that is what's causing the least cost routing and creating this problem where the calls are simply not terminating in these rural markets. And
so I'm just asking you, does the plan address it? And if not, should it?
You know what? The plan does address it because intercarrier comp rates go significantly low. They go to 0007 in a 6-7 year time frame. So there's a significant drop. The thing that I worry about with arbitrage is somebody's always clever enough to come up with the next scheme to kind of come around and do, you know, what is the next call termination issue. So while, yes, I do think this will be a part of the solution, I think there's going to be another issue, you know, as with everything. Once you kind of squeeze the balloon, something else pops out somewhere else.
What would you do? Because obviously having a plan that wouldn't really solve the problem for rural communities.
Well, I think, you know, one of the things that's really important that we're finding right now is that our carriers don't even know who to go to. So one of the things that the FCC did a few weeks ago is they put up on their website, you know, if you're having issues with these different carriers, who to call. I mean, it's that basic first step problem of, you know, calls aren't coming through. I don't know who to go to in these different carriers. So that has been the first step that they have done. I think the second step will be next week when they have this workshop, because it'll be having all of the folks around the table, and it'll be what they're really setting it up as a discussion for coming up with solutions to this. You know, what are some answers? What are, you know, are there significant carriers that are the biggest problem area? How do you actually resolve some of this? So I hope that by the end of next week, we actually have a little bit more of a clear path forward, and we'd certainly be happy to circle back to you at that point in time.
Okay. Commissioner Jones, will Washingtonians be better off under the Universal Service Fund in these compensation reforms along the lines of the ABC proposal?
It's difficult to tell right now because we do not understand the model properly, and what the ABC plan proponents are advocating before you on the Hill is an incomplete picture. I attached to my testimony an appendix that shows the total net flows, high cost support for price capped, rural carriers, and the competitive, you know, the wireless CETCs. So that's what you have to look at. Under the price cap carriers, yes, we may be advantaged to some extent. But if we do not have some jurisdiction over VoIP and the traditional carriers like Frontier and CenturyLink switch traffic or a larger amount of traffic to the IP network, we may not have the ability, as Senator Warner says, to deal with the interconnection issues, the consumer complaint issues, because the federal government will have exclusive jurisdiction over that. So in that sense, I think we would be worse off.
Okay.
Chairman, can I add a point? Can I add something to that? Which is, I just want to say that I think in the state of Washington, which is the state that U.S. Cellular operates in, that consumers would be worse off if the plan is adopted as currently boarded, because the funding to wireless and the ability to reach the rural communities that we would want to reach and further expand in Washington would be hampered. And, you know, if the right of first refusal is activated, that further, you know, disenables our ability against a smaller fund to even go in and provide service. And I think that, you know, for the price cap carriers or the wireline carriers, if they get the funds through right of first refusal, they could still use that to build out a wireless network. So, you know, that may or may not happen, but I know that given the way that the wireless companies like U.S. Cellular look at rural communities, they would be hurt in that scenario.
So, Commissioner Jones, does it make a difference that the FCC is not obviously reforming the contribution mechanism at the same time it's reforming the high-cost distribution mechanism?
I think it does, but I think it's a remedy that we can address later. We were hoping, especially some of my state members were hoping we could do it all at once. Chairman Martin, the previous chairman, put it in his plan, as you know, at the end of 2008, and that was almost passed. I think Commissioner Copps, Commissioner McDowell were actively involved in discussion of both contribution and disbursement. But for whatever reason, they've chosen not to put that in. So I would prefer that it be dealt with now, but the issues of how to assess contributions. The IP issues are somewhat complex, so I think they can be dealt with later.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.